Hey, gang, we are back with another How to Succeed podcast. This is How to Succeed with AI in Sales. My guest this week is Jordan Ledwin. He is right there, a Sandler trainer from Charlotte, North Carolina. And the following podcast, copyrighted by Sandler Systems, Inc., protected by U.S. copyright laws. If you don't know Sandler, we're the world's largest sales training and development company. You can find more information at Sandler.com. You can also chime in the comments. Todd's already ready and waiting for us on LinkedIn this time. We are doing live, so you can share your comments on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, but we'll also record this up and get it out on the How to Succeed podcast, which comes out weekly on every podcast platform on the planet. So go check that out and like and subscribe if you like this conversation. It's going to be a difficult one, Jordan. So welcome to the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about AI in sales. Let's start with AI and the state of where we are in general, because I think it's bonkers that Mark Zuckerberg is spending billions of dollars trying to build a matrix. I saw online they built a robot that is made of metal. It liquefies. It can move through like walls and then reform on the other side. That's Terminator 2. We have ChatGPT now, which can write its own code. And I feel like this is all setting up for the apocalypse or the biggest revolution in sales we've ever had. Where do you sit on the spectrum?
Hey, Mike. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to dive into this topic, and kind of like you're saying, it's a big topic. You can go in a lot of different directions. So I think the hardest thing is figuring out how we use it, how we can implement it in our daily practices and process to kind of make us more effective in what we're doing without getting closer towards the Terminator or end of the world as quickly as possible. So I think there's definitely some things to be aware of and watch out for, but I think there's also a lot of really cool opportunities that have presented itself already. And as rapidly as things are moving, I think we're having this discussion today. In 2 weeks, it's a totally different discussion, just based on the new technology that's coming out and just the advances that are happening on a daily basis. So, there's definitely a lot to cover here.
Yeah, Todd says Zuck's pulling back on the metaverse already. Maybe they can't pull it off just quite yet. But I think there are some interesting things in sales. So I'm also not anti-technology. I wrote our book, LinkedIn the Sandler Way. I was on social selling like 7 years ago. And I'm pro-technology. I think there are some things that technology is better at, like listening to your calls. Gong is better than like your coworker Gary sitting in on your virtual meeting and trying to take notes. Gong is going to allow you to fast forward, to rewind, to jump to parts of the conversation, to search and display and get some analytics on this and compare calls to other calls. Lots of really cool things that are better than what humans can do. I think there's also places where humans are better. So knowing when to break the rules, bringing humor and insight and conversation, asking a really interesting or unusual question in the middle of a call, probably easier than a chat bot doing that. So if we think about attitude, what's our ideal attitude here for leveraging technology?
Well, I think there's a few, and I think you brought up an important point that a lot of people are concerned that AI is coming out, my job is in jeopardy, or I'm not gonna have a job in 5 years if computers take over what I'm doing. And I think for some people or for some areas, that may be a concern, but I think that AI is allowing us to become more effective at what we're doing, right? So AI can take some of those mundane tasks where, sales managers might have had to watch call recordings and kind of analyze the data themselves, where we now have platforms like Gong and Fathom and all these different platforms that are coming out on a daily basis that can do a lot of these mundane tasks for us. So we can spend our time having the conversations face to face or interacting with customers and building that bonding and rapport that a computer or machine can't do for us. So I think the attitudes are just to kind of be open to being a continuous learner, which I think in the Sandler network, it's full of people who are looking to continually better themselves, learn what new and unique things are out there that they can implement in what they're doing. So I think it's just being aware of what's going on, being open to using new technology and seeing if it works in your process. And if it can save you, some time on a daily basis where you can take that time and use it more effectively, I think that's really what this conversation is about right now.
Yeah, you hit two things for me that I want to highlight. The first one is data entry stuff. Like the technology is there. Modern CRM systems can pull together things and do research like Zoom Info, can pull analytics and even buying signals from customers and stuff that maybe a human would have a hard time processing that much information. But an AI chatbot or a computer program can go and research all of the news on a company that you have down as a prospect and alert you when they take buying signals, like going to your website or downloading multiple white papers in a row or something like that. It's probably
Mhm.
easier for programs to monitor that stuff than humans. And I
Well,
think on the other side of that, you said about making the job easier. I think a lot of people think about, like you mentioned, replacing the humans or allowing computers to sell, which I think if you could already sell through a computer, your stuff's probably up on Amazon. If you have
mhm.
a salesperson in your company, it's probably for a reason. There's difficult questions, it's expensive, it's time consuming to buy. Maybe there's a decision making committee or something that if you just need to buy socks on Amazon, you'd go do that. You don't need a salesperson for that anymore. But how do you think they're about the key attributes or behaviors that salespeople should be doing, and what should the computer be measuring?
Sure. Well, I think you bring up an important point, and it's something that I've said all the time, and I get into arguments sometimes on this, and I like to say work smarter, not harder. Some people say, well, you have to work hard. And I'm not saying don't work hard, but I'm saying if you're going to choose one or the other, I would choose to work smarter because the scale that it's going to increase your productivity at and your efficiency is a lot higher than what you could just by working harder. Some of the things that AI is doing and simplifying for us, was taking us a lot of time and a lot of effort as salespeople, or even as marketing people, as content creators, as whatever it might be. So I think working smarter is what AI is about, just to help us leverage what we're already doing more effectively. And I think with that being said, something that we say at Sandler a lot is, leveraging technology to engage and not to hide, right? And so that's something that I've heard you bring up before. We don't want to let AI do everything for us, and then we just sit back in our office dialing in the AI, making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do, but rather using these AI tools to, find leads that are interested in our products so that we can pick up the phone and engage them, or automating some of the email outreach so that it's specific to their personality style, that we use AI to assume what that personality style might be, but then we're actually going and doing the outreach and having those connections, but we're using AI to leverage that technology to make these connections more meaningful and to customize that conversation a lot more than what we could before. And I think, when it comes to patterns and things like that, yeah, we can identify them as humans, but when you have a computer doing it, I think it's a lot more effective too, because the more that data gets logged into the system, the more accurate those analyses are going to be, and the more accurate those predictions are going to be. And I think it's going to, and it has helped companies scale what they're doing very quickly.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the note of it's if it's slowing you down, if it's distracting you from your sales job, that's probably not a good call. If it's making you more efficient, allowing you to have more human to human conversations in virtual meetings, on the phone, or in person, then that's probably a good thing. Giving selling time back to sellers, I think, is one of the biggest advantages of AI. But you
Hmm.
mentioned some of these other things like first drafts and other stuff that I think could be really interesting here. So we got some comments here in the chat too. I want to make sure we share there too. Chris just says great point and gives you a high five. Todd also says he agrees. You can use AI to help and augment your judgment, but probably shouldn't be the entire judgment of the thing. You shouldn't just let it all be automated, because then we're not leveraging the best of human connections either.
Hmm.
So I know you've been doing some work on this and it's all changing very quickly, but I'm wondering, in our behavior bucket here, what are some things that actually today salespeople could do using AI or other technologies to, practice what we've been preaching here so far?
Sure. So a few things that we've been doing. This is stuff that I've put out in the newsletter I've done recently on LinkedIn called the AI Sales Guide. Just taking different AI tools and techniques that people can start to learn how to engage with AI. And so we started with a bunch of free tools, and there's a lot of cool free tools that you can use to automatically record and transcribe your meetings, right? So for Zoom, we have a tool called Fathom that we use, where it hops in all of our meetings, it records the entire meeting, it transcribes the entire meeting. I have a panel on the right-hand side where I can go and select, this is a pain that this person mentioned, this is part of the budget conversation. So I'm taking notes as I'm having this conversation, and it all is being pushed right into my HubSpot. So the great thing about this is one of the tasks that salespeople hated doing was updating CRM. You don't have to do that anymore, at least not for virtual calls. It's all being done in live time, a lot more accurately than what you're going to get to when you have, 5 hours go by between the end of the call and when you're logging into your CRM. You're like, what did they say? Was it this percentage or that percentage? Or did they say that pain? Or was that the other conversation I was having? So I think just leveraging it in that sense is a great asset. And then a partner of ours, Crystal Knows, I think is one of the most powerful tools that I'm personally using. It's helped us even recently close one of our largest deals we've had just by allowing us to understand our buyer, understand how they communicate, and develop a solution and proposal that spoke specifically to them. And I think that technology has not only helped us engage from a level of building clients and customers, but even just warm leads and prospects. It's information that you didn't have available to you before. So it's just a nice thing to have going into it.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. The other one that came to mind for me, I mean, Crystal Knows is amazing because it makes sense that AI would do that. It can predict what a person's personality style is or how they want to be interacted with by all of the information that's about that person on the internet. So it can aggregate a lot more data and make more, intuitive insights than a human can there. What do you think about Chat GPT and like ugly first drafts for sales emails or scripts for presentations or videos or something that you're doing? I think both of us have written blogs partially written by AI and giving us examples and stuff there. Are there any other really kind of experimental things out there that you find interesting right now?
Well, ChatGPT, of course, is the topic when it comes to AI and sales. I think that's what really brought about this whole conversation just because of how unique it is. And I think a lot of people, this is how all this started for me, even as I was calling a lot of my friends and business owners that I knew. And I said, hey, I found this over the weekend. Have you heard about this? And they said, no, right? And they're confused about why I'm freaking out and think this is so cool. And then they call me a week later and they're like, I understand. This has changed my business, whether it's creating content, creating those emails, just the amount of things that ChatGPT can do that took us, again, a long amount of time to potentially do in the past, we can now have in seconds. So, that could be writing cold emails or writing cold email drafts. One thing I've done as well is taken emails where I'm like, I'm not exactly sure how I want to respond to this. So I take that email, paste it into ChatGPT and say, hey, can you recommend a response that is warm, friendly, that you'd expect from a customer service representative? And it gives you a response. Now, I think you'd probably know, am I going to copy and paste that response directly into the email and send it? No, I'm not. But like we were saying, I think right now AI is a guide, right? I'd like to think of it as a compass rather than a GPS, right? It can point you in the right direction, but I wouldn't follow it turn by turn, at least not yet. We're still on the early versions of GPT-3 and GPT 3.5, and GPT-4 will come out and more advanced AI will come out as this industry moves along. But I think for the time being, it's, again, a tool that we use to make ourselves more effective as sellers and to take away some of the brainstorming and, hey, can you reread this email for clarity before I send it? Little things like that where you don't have to go and bother your coworker or your sales manager for this stuff anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even I'm just a terrible speller, and my father is even worse. So he would always say in our sales training, it's selling, not spelling. Because if he wrote anything on the board, it was going to be, grammatically incorrect. So I think that's a quick way to just run something through there. But I love what you said about you can ask it to make it more concise, or how can you make this in 5 sentences instead of everything that's on our sales marketing sheet. Or you can even ask it for ideas about pain points of like, what would be the top 3 concerns of a sales vice president who is trying to grow their revenue or something like that.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and it'll give you ideas for those. Now, they might not be the first 3 that you pick, but it'll give you ideas for that. I was brainstorming, give me 20 ideas for a team name for my fantasy football team or something. And that's not sales related, but it has unlimited ideas where humans are going to struggle to that. And then once you get the ball rolling, you can add your 2 cents to it. You can improve it upon that ugly first draft and really take it to the next level. You had something.
Well, and that's something that I've talked about as well, is just a portion of using ChatGPT is understanding how to ask it questions, right? Similar to
Mhm.
Google, if you know how to Google what you're looking for, you can get a lot better responses. So the more you use ChatGPT and understand how to use it, the more effective those outputs are going to be and the better it is going to be to use. But yeah, exactly like what you're saying, last night I'm thinking, okay, I can have a conversation for 5 hours about anything, especially AI, but let me use AI to create an outline. So I said, hey, talking to ChatGPT, I'm doing a sales podcast on how to use AI in sales. Can you help me prepare for this podcast, acting as a sales and AI expert, and write an outline? So it wrote an entire outline. I went back and had a conversation with it, and that conversation with it helped me fill in the entire outline, understand different case studies, get different statistics, all using ChatGPT. So you can almost use it to teach yourself things. Now,
Yeah.
with that being said, I want to note there are biases when it comes to ChatGPT and what it's trained on. So definitely keep that in mind before you trust its word and everything it's saying. Some of this stuff you do need to verify, especially at this point in time. But as a starting point, it's not a bad place to start.
Yeah, I think it's the ideas and not the information. So they say clearly on there, this is up to date to 2021. So it's
Yep.
it's missing a large chunk of our information and what's on the internet. It's also right now only available of what some of the information is that you can find on the web. So if you search a smaller person, like tell me about Bill Smith at ABC, HVAC company, they might not have any information on
Hmm.
Bill Smith. But if you say, tell me about Susie at Facebook or something, the vice president of sales at Facebook, there may be enough information there to give you more information. Or certainly in Crystal Knows and other tools like that are Zoom Info that are specifically designed to give you sales information about the person. You may get better and more accurate data than what you had in your CRM or could find on there. I also think it's interesting to kind of go back to that topic since we're in our technique bucket about how you write a good prompt. Because one of the things that I think is most interesting about ChatGPT is it being able to assume another persona, which is hard for humans to do. We always kind
Hmm.
of think from our own perspective. So if we can say, what would be the questions a vice president of sales would ask me, it could do a better job than maybe we could. Or if you could say, write a joke in the style of Jerry Seinfeld, it's going to be more applicable to do that because it has a large catalog of Jerry Seinfeld
Hmm.
jokes to work from, rather than maybe somebody else. Which, by the way, I did. It compared salespeople to weather forecasters. If you think like we're good at exaggerating, we get sent out at hazardous conditions. Any forecast we give longer than 7 days out are probably inaccurate.
Yep.
That's a pretty good joke
Not bad.
for a robot. I'll take
Well,
it.
that's one small tip I learned early on because when I first learned about this, I dove into YouTube, and YouTube had an endless amount of videos being created on how to make $1 million in 5 days, how to create 7 businesses with AI, and all these different things. But I wanted to learn, how can I actually use this and share different ways that are, you know, not some far-fetched, hey, make $1 million in 7 days, but hey, I can actually use this in my business today. And one of the things I found was even just asking ChatGPT to act as those two words specifically. So act as a vice president of sales for a construction company and explain to me your top 5 challenges when it comes to sales and growing revenue. And it's going to list out those bullets. And you can say, okay, well, my solution solves those or my solution doesn't solve those. So you can ask for more or different types of problems, or you can use those problems. And I used an example of this in my last newsletter. I responded to that output and I said, use numbers 2, 3, and 5, also or all issues that I had a solution for, and write a sales email saying that I have experience in solving these issues, but don't go into detail on how I'm going to solve them. And it gave me a pretty good outline. I might need to spend 5 minutes kind of cleaning a few things up and making it more specific to that actual person, but it took 5 to 10 seconds of a conversation with ChatGPT to create an email that I would sit and look at a computer screen for 30 minutes sometimes, say, is that accurate? Is that really what they're struggling with? And brainstorming myself. So I think the more you do it, the better you get at it. And just understanding, what are the things that I'm doing every day that I don't necessarily need to be doing, right? So I had a conversation last night with my younger brother who just started as a sales estimator for a paving company. So I was in there setting up his HubSpot, trying to get all this going. And he's explaining that a lot of his time is spent using these drawings and making estimates for the drawings. And I was like, well, why don't you look and see if there's an AI tool for that? So he Googled AI paving tools, and he found a tool that can take drawings, do all the work for him automatically using AI. And what used to take 2 or 3 hours now takes 5 minutes. So he can spend his time having conversations and being in front of people and doing the selling behaviors that, again, humans need to be doing. And the AI can take care of a lot of the mundane tasks that he doesn't need to spend 3 hours to do.
Absolutely love it. Once again, we're talking with Jordan Ledwin, a Sandler trainer from Charlotte, North Carolina. You can find more information at Sandler.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the How to Succeed podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Jordan, I wanted to get to know a little bit more about you, but before we do that, anything else we missed on AI? Anything you were hoping to share that we didn't get to?
Well, there's a lot we could talk about, right? So there's going to be always things that we can miss, but I think just staying in tune and staying up to date with what's going on is important if you want to understand how to best use this. And I'll leave you with one interesting statistic. So I saw that by the end of 2023, there will be more AI assistants in the world than people. So they're predicting between Siri, Amazon Alexa, Google, all these different things that we use, there's going to be 8.4 billion by the end of this year, and it will outpace the amount of humans on the earth. Good thing or bad thing, I'll leave that up to you.
Yet to be seen. Probably a little bit of both. All right. I also wanted to mention we're going to continue this conversation at the Sandler Summit. So if you go to Sandler.com/summit, you can get your tickets live to meet us in March in Orlando. It's only a few weeks away now, but you can also register for the virtual recordings or to watch virtually online at Sandler.com/summit. I know Jody Williamson has one of our opening keynotes about technology and the future of sales. He's our sales futurist there for sure. The act as was one of the favorite tips from Cynthia there. And Yoshi said, where do you go to stay up to date in AI software? What would you recommend there?
Well, I might be biased, but I think if you want to learn about AI and sales, the AI Sales Guy newsletter that I have on LinkedIn is a decent way to stay up to date. But I think just attending webinars like this or listening to different podcasts, searching more specifically to your industry, what's happening, just stay on the lookout for it. And I think the more you interact and engage with it, of course, the more LinkedIn will put it on your feed and the more you'll see it. I mean, all I see, my targeted ads are all AI tools. They know what I'm looking for right now. There's so much of that on my LinkedIn feed. So I think just stay engaged with it. Keep your ears open and just, like I said earlier, have the attitude of being a lifelong learner and understand, what am I doing today and how can I use AI to potentially improve it?
The algorithm knows once you start searching for it, it'll keep feeding you more. I love it. All right. Now, about you, Jordan, at this point in your career, how do you define success? What does success, either with Sandler or outside of Sandler, look like for you?
I think success for me is moving in the right direction. I think if you're staying stagnant or if you're moving backwards, that's not what you're looking for. But waking up and saying, what am I going to do today to move my life forward, to improve, whether that's learning how to fail at something or learning how to succeed at something, learning how to use a new tool, learning more about my industry or my profession, or even just my health or things like that. So I think it can mean a lot of different things, but I think just moving in the right direction and trying to better yourself on a daily basis. I hate this phrase, but I have to use it. It's a journey, not a destination. So I think it's about enjoying the process of bettering yourself.
And what was the biggest lesson learned in your sales career? So you and I are both Sandler spawn. We're sons of Sandler trainers. So we've got introduced to this pretty early. But was there a particularly hard lesson or a failure you're most proud of that you had to get over in order to find success with Sandler?
Well, I think I'll have plenty more failure before my sales career ends, hopefully. But I think for me, some of the best things, because I've, like you said, been in Sandler for a long time, and like a lot of people, once you start to learn stuff, you can start to think that you're pretty good at it. And I think the best thing for me is continually understanding that I have so much to learn all the time. And some of those situations have been in sales calls where I've been asking questions and I've gotten a response that just kind of opens my eyes and makes me realize I don't know everything. I have a lot to learn, and just staying in that spot of being humble enough to go into conversations with curiosity rather than assuming that I know the answer or knowing the solution has been a lesson I've learned for sure.
I love that. Nice lifelong learner mindset is always
Mm-hmm.
healthy. Now, last one. Do you have a favorite quote or a Sandler rule? What do you think?
So, favorite Sandler rule of mine is going to be if the competition is doing it, stop, do something different. I think this is a great avenue to talk about when it comes to that rule, especially just to understand how you can customize those interactions, how you can stand out. There's so many markets that are just saturated with lookalike companies, and it's hard to tell that company from that company. And I think my goal and in life, as well as from a business perspective, is just to stand out, be unique, be a little bit different, make that conversation more memorable for the person that you're having it with.
Good stuff. Again, that's Jordan Ledwin, Sandler trainer from Charlotte, North Carolina. And if you want to learn more about Sandler, go to sandler.com. Plenty of more information. You can find a local training center, or you can reach out to our enterprise team. If you have multiple locations, that's pretty easy. We'll take care of that for you with our enterprise team. Don't forget to register for the Sandler Summit. If you would like more information about updating trends and the latest in the Sandler world for this year, go check out the Sandler Summit, sandler.com/summit. Appreciate all of you listening and watching today. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast as well. How to Succeed on basically any channel or place you can get podcasts. And until next time, whatever you are, be a good one. Have a great day, everybody.